Intro video too.
Yeah, there we go. One second, I'm having audio issues, of course. 2 seconds. This time I will take full responsibility. Let's go listen to the intro again. Let's do that.
Intro music playing. Intro video too.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, now we are live and I should be able to be heard. All right, so we are here to discuss Zahi Hawass on Joe Rogan. This was an adventure and, you know, I was super excited to see this video drop on Joe Rogan yesterday. I was shocked by it. I had no advanced knowledge. And what we're here today is to discuss the good, the bad, the ugly of what went down yesterday on Joe Rogan. I guess it was probably filmed 2 days ago, but that's okay. I will play some clips. I will react. We will talk about what it all means for Zahi Hawass, for Joe Rogan, for archaeology, for the public like you and me, and I'll try to take some questions. So as of now, it has about 500,000 views on YouTube already, and that's within 24 hours, as well as probably a similar number of views on Spotify. So we are talking about, you know, lots of people actually viewing this video. I thought that I should do a response for a few different reasons. For one, I was the very first archaeologist to ever go on Joe Rogan. Professional archaeologist, that is, real archaeologist, that is. And so I actually did something before Dr. Zahi Hawass, which is kind of cool. And Zahi Hawass is the second real archaeologist on Joe Rogan. So yeah, as the first, I feel like I can respond a little bit to the second. And I've also worked in Egypt. I was there as a student. This is me in front of the pyramids with my good friend Alex Makovics, who also was an archaeologist and a GIS specialist. I worked at Abydos in Upper Egypt and South Egypt, which is where the first dynasty originally came from. So I am using my bit of knowledge about Egyptology and about archaeology and about public communication in archaeology and about the context of Joe Rogan and the kind of stuff that is normally platformed there to try to discuss how this conversation went. Sorry, this live stream, I'm not actually being sponsored, but it's brought to you by beer. It is brought to you by Leffe Blonde, one of my favorite beers. No, they're not paying me anything, so this is not a sponsored promotion. But yeah, I like Leffe beer. It's 7 p.m. here. I plan on having fun with this. I hope you guys do too. So let's think about this. My goal here is to walk through the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think a lot of good things happened. In many ways, I think it was a win for archaeology, but there was a lot of bad stuff and a lot of ugly stuff as well that was not so good for archaeology. And I think we should walk through that. There's already quite a bit of responses on the internet tearing it apart. No surprise, Jimmy Corsetti, Graham Hancock's acolyte, critiqued the hell out of it, saying he just finished the podcast with Joe Rogan and he's going to make a detailed video. Well, sorry, Jimmy, I am getting on here first to try to get some facts out here because he's claiming that it exposes the absurdity of academia's false narrative about the ancient Egyptians, which I can tell you is just not true. And then just recently today, Jimmy tweeted the significance of what happened in this podcast cannot be overstated. Conspiracy theories have for years said a lost civilization built the pyramids. Well, the most experienced Egyptologist on earth just crumbled, saying, how can you find me? How can you find this evidence? How do you know that? I'll tell you later. Buy my $81 book. I'll send you photos. Which is really hypocritical for people like Jimmy Corsetti and Graham Hancock, who just hosted an event in Sedonia, Arizona, which cost $420 to attend. Sorry, an $81 book that you can own that's chock full of information is a steal compared to a $420 weekend. But the main takeaway from the conversation, they apparently claim academic explanation is baseless. Props to Joe Rogan and Zahi Hawass failed, apparently. So let's think this through. Like I said, my main goal here is to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start off with what I mean by these three things. I think that the real good that came of this is that Zahi Hawass shared RealArchaeology to... There must be 1 million people that have already seen it, and I imagine there'll be another $1 million people as well. I saw dollars in the chat about that thing. So I think that that's good. Sharing some real archaeology is good, and at the same time, Zahi Hawass did that with a little bit of humor, which I think is also really, really good. So I just to get a sense of the good, let's play one quick clip. I think this clip emphasized some of the good that Zahi brought to this podcast situation.
Okay, what did you find?
Now, you know, can I call you Joe?
Please do.
And you call me Zahi.
Okay.
Now, you know, I do receive fan emails.
You've received emails?
Fan
emails.
About 50 a week. Some of them bad ones. Some people think that I discovered evidence to prove that pyramids built by aliens or lost civilization, and I hide them. I never answer these questions. But to you, I tell you, how can I hide anything? I'm not working alone. I'm working with people. You cannot hide anything because people will see you. And I will tell you a joke. It happened, but it's a joke. A reporter came to see me from California to my office, and my office was located next to the Great Pyramid of Khufu. And he said to me, people say at 12 noon, you leave your office and you go to the bathroom and you open a tunnel from your bathroom. It's true, really, it's what he said. And you go from the tunnel to the Great Pyramid.
Oh.
And you hide things and you come back. I said, okay, what do you need from me now? He said, I want to see your bathroom. This really happened. He went to my bathroom.
Did he check all the panels?
And he came back. I said, have you seen any tunnels in my bathroom? He said, no. I said, what are you going to do now? He said, I will publish your bathroom in the internet. And therefore, if you want to see my bathroom, write www.hawassbathroom.com.
Is that much of an issue that people really believe it?
So, look, I mean, I think Hawass bathroom. .com. Let's check this out. I actually should have Googled this beforehand. And I am getting a blank website right now. Damn, I would have liked there to be a website for that. But yes, I think that by and large, throughout much of this episode, Zahi Hawass shared some real archaeology in a funny way. He had on a cool maroon suit. He was smoking a cigar like a badass. And, you know, he shared a lot of cool, interesting facts that I think a lot of people will pick up. So that's really good. Okay, that's really good. But there's also some bad. In many ways, I think I saw somebody up above that said I came better prepared than him to Joe Rogan. And yeah, I think at times Dr. Hawass, Zahi came off as a little unprepared. In particular, when it came to showing the goods. Show me the goods, Zahi. Show me the goods.
Available online? Can we look at them?
Yeah, I can send it to you.
Can we see them online? Are they online?
No, in my book, Giza and the Pyramids. I don't know if it's online.
I'm sure it's online. Jamie will find it.
I excavated, and these are photos in my book, Giza and the Pyramids.
Are there photos of this?
Of course, in my book.
Okay, let's find the photos of the equipment first. Can't find anything?
I'll show you what I was.
It's in my book.
What did you find?
Well, nothing.
Nothing? How is that not online? That doesn't even make any sense.
It's in my book, Giza and the Pyramids. And I do have photos of workmen inside the Sphinx, underneath the Sphinx, everywhere. And I do have photos of everywhere under the Sphinx.
Okay.
The Sphinx is a solid rock.
But are there photographs online?
Yes, in my book. I don't go online. Why I have to go online? I go to my book.
Oh no, I understand. But for everybody else that doesn't have immediate access to your book.
Did you find them online? It's called the Abu Sir blocks.
So those are the only hieroglyphics on the Great Pyramid, right?
And I can show you the photos in my.
Do you have the footage here?
If you can come to my lecture.
Oh, come on,
in Houston.
Man. Well, what about right here, right now?
I can send it to you.
Where do you have it? Do you have it on you?
In my computer.
Where's your computer?
In Las Vegas.
Oh, well, fuck.
But I can send it to you.
But I want to show it on the show.
Show it in the show. I can send it to you tomorrow.
Okay. You can send it tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. We'll splice it in, folks.
Then tomorrow I will send it to you.
Please do.
So, yeah, that I think exemplifies the bad. We're going to dive into a bunch of those details. You'll be happy to know that I have tracked down every single photograph and drawing from books that Zahi Hawass, it would have been fantastic if he would have brought with him so that he could have showed this audience the details of what he was talking about. So we're going to dive in depth. I'm going to show you how I would have prepared, I suppose. And to be honest, I got a lot of these images from Zahi Hawass's books and publications. So I want to say that he was sharing mostly accurate information. But look, a picture speaks 1,000 words, especially for a tough audience and a tough host who is skeptical of actual archaeology. I think that I think that Zahi could have been better prepared to show this kind of skeptical audience what he's trying to talk about. Now, then there's the ugly, which I'm going to get to last. And the ugly has to do, well, let's just play this one
and
short
I want to tell you one thing also.
See what I mean.
I am the only Egyptologist who have an open mind.
Really?
That I always look. One? I always look at what the public say, and I will tell.
So, look, the reality is at times Zahi Hawass was straight up condescending and rude and insulting to his colleagues, and he got some very serious things wrong about misrepresenting the state of archaeology today. And so that is what I would consider the ugly. In some ways, you could chalk it up a bit to his ego. Zahi Hawass has a very strong personality, which I think is good. He is an Egyptologist from Egypt, a country where there has been a history of colonialism. He should be sticking up for himself and promoting the heritage of his country. But at the same time, that came off as rude and condescending to his colleagues and to other archaeologists. And it also at times misrepresented the state of Egyptology and the state of archaeology in serious ways that impact the public understanding of our field. So this is what we're going to dive into: the good, the bad, and the ugly of JRE 2321, Zahi Hawass on Joe Rogan. So I just want to remind everybody really quickly, make sure you give this video a like and afterwards a comment to feed the algorithm machine so that we can spread this far and wide. And remember, if you like the content here, to support the channel with super thanks, channel memberships, Patreon, or Ko-fi. Look, I have a lot of tabs open, so I'm going to be going between different tabs. I'll try to answer questions if I see stuff that is relevant. I'll try to save questions for the end if I see stuff that looks good. But if you want to save, if you want to make sure I see your questions, obviously super chat or saving it till the end will be the easiest, because I do have a lot of tabs of different clips to show. So let's think about the good. Let's start off with a bit of the good. I think that that's important to start with. Let me get up this clip. I think that Zahi in many ways did share some real good archaeology for quite a bit of it, which I think is important. And he did it again with humor and with grace in many places. So let's check this out. We are on the good still, yes.
I'm going to tell you one thing.
Okay.
If you tell me that pyramids built by giants, okay? I will say, okay, come to the excavation. All the skeleton that you discover are 5 to 6 feet high. Nothing about
Who's
giants.
saying they were built by giants?
Some people say that.
Oh, okay.
The second.
I've heard aliens.
Okay, the second, aliens. If aliens build the pyramids, do they leave any? Do they shit sometimes? Aren't they going to shit?
Maybe aliens don't shit.
If they don't shit, are they
Everyone
going
shits?
to leave something on the ground? On the
Right.
contrary, I give you the evidence, every evidence that I will tell you today
Of actual workers.
of actual workers and what's happening. Now,
Right.
we come about building the pyramid. All the stones I told you came from Giza Plateau. We found out what happened first.
So yeah, I mean, this is when Zahi is discussing the workers' cemetery that he excavated, and he points out, look, we have these workers. We have the hieroglyphs of their roles. We have all this kind of stuff that we can put together to look at who built the pyramids. You know, we have their diet, we have their pathologies on their skeletons from moving such large blocks and doing the quarries, and we even have the papyri from the Red Sea Scrolls that tells us in more detail about what was going on to build these pyramids, and it's all well dated in time to the time when the pyramids were constructed. This is all really good, and we saw it's kind of funny. He discredits giants and aliens. By the way, I want to point out that, yes, let's see if I can find it. If I can find my tabs. Come on, tabs. Let's work for me. I can tell you that pieces of shit have been found in Egypt. Coprolites from the 18th century, 18th dynasty at Amarna in the workman's village have been found. Heck, even Ice Age pieces of shit have been found from Egypt. So, you know, if there were aliens or giants or something weird like that, it actually is kind of plausible that we might find the pieces of their shit. Coprolite, by the way, is Greek for shitstone. It literally is petrified shit. And yes, we have them in Egypt dating back to the ancient Egyptian period, dating back even further to the Ice Age when there is claims of a lost civilization or aliens or whatnot, and we have none of those pieces of shit. We have real pieces of shit instead from different animals and humans from ancient Egypt. Okay, so let's move on now to another good section that Zahi presented some real accurate information with some humor.
A few years ago, a major discovery happened for the first time. It is the first time that we have written evidence about building the pyramid of Khufu.
When did this happen?
3 years ago.
Really?
It's called the Wadi el-Jarf papyri.
Oh.
Do you want to know what's in this papyri?
I do.
This papyri was found in Sinai, in a port belongs to Khufu. And inside this port, there was caves. And inside the caves, found remains of boat and this big papyri. It's large, huge.
There it is.
That's it, exactly. Okay?
And what does this say?
Now,
First of all, how old is that?
4,600 years ago.
Isn't that amazing?
And
You
listen,
could find writing.
In this-
4,600. So papyrus was made with animal skin, correct?
no, papyrus was of papyrus, from the papyri.
Right. What is?
The papyri is just like leaves.
Okay.
Now, but listen to the papyri.
Stem.
It is a diary of an overseer of the workmen. His name is Merer, Merer. Okay? Merer is saying, I am Sahaj in hieroglyphic, means inspector. Under me, working 40 workmen. I was hired by Khufu to work in his pyramid. This is in hieroglyphic. And he said, my immediate boss, his name is Diddy.
Like P. Diddy?
Diddy, yes. Now,
Which, by the way, it is not like P. Diddy. It is it transliterated from hieroglyphs. It's D-E-D-I, Dedi. But obviously Zahi has an accent.
20 years ago, in my excavation west of the Great Pyramid of Khufu, I discovered 20 tombs.
Are these the tools?
No, this is not the tools. No. The tools are really sharp.
Okay, so yeah, so in that clip, what we have, and it goes on with some other chat, the conversation rambles a lot. But look, the point is this papyrus was found much more recently in Sinai. It was published by Pierre Taillet and Mark Lehner. It's called the Dead Sea Scrolls. Some of you might have heard of it. And it really clearly shows the construction of the pyramid from the perspective of workers and their work orders and their contracts, their bosses, the hierarchy. And as he's talking about with Dedi, not Diddy, not P. Diddy, but Dedi, is not only is he mentioned in this papyrus, but we actually have his tomb in Giza itself. So we have all this kind of interrelationship and connections between these kind of literary sources, these textual sources, and the physical archaeological evidence. So this is really cool to share with the audience. And yes, a nice little joke about P. Diddy and Joe not knowing what papyrus plants are certainly keep us all watching along and talking on the internet and things like that. So I'm all for the kind of humor and whatnot as well. Okay, let's get another. We have two more interesting sections, which I think are worth recounting as examples of the good.
Counted the stones.
Okay.
That people said it's 2,300,000 blocks.
Right.
I found no evidence. It's only when the Arabs came. You know, all the theories that the New Age people say now, it came from the Arabs. When the Arabs came and they entered the pyramid, they said all these nonsense stories about the pyramids. Then I never found any place to tell me how they cut the stones. But now we have evidence that the base of the pyramid is 20 feet high of solid rock, no stones. In 2010, I brought a team, scientists from every field, and we recounted the stones based on the new evidence, and we found out that the stones of the pyramid are only no more than 1 million. And the average height of the limestone is 0.5 ton to 2.5 tons.
So the base of the pyramid is 20 feet high, carved into solid stone.
Yes.
And then the other rocks were placed on top of it.
No,
Now,
I want to come to.
So this is actually, I think, really important. This debunks a lot of misconceptions that we hear on the internet about pyramids all over the place. People say 2,300,000 stones. No, it's actually modern recent calculations suggest 1 million. And he brings up a really interesting point that most of these misconceptions and myths about the pyramids, they actually come from medieval, oftentimes Arab legends that then get transmitted in the 19th century European writings into modern literature and picked up by these kind of pseudo-historians and pseudo-scholars like Graham Hancock and others. And so I really want to plug really quickly Jason Colavito's book, The Legends of the Pyramids, that actually walks through this kind of ancient, medieval, Renaissance, and modern myths about the pyramids, these kind of misconceptions and where they come from. And you'd be shocked if you read this and you compare, say, what Graham Hancock and others say about the pyramid, the kind of stuff that always shows up on Joe Rogan's podcast when he has fake archaeologists on. It actually comes very directly out of kind of medieval Arabic scrolls most of the time. So, you know, it's definitely worth checking that out. And so I think that Zahi does a really good job of debunking some of those myths. He also pointed out that actually Khufu reigned for 27, 28 years. So there's also more time for constructing the Great Pyramid than most people estimate. It's actually about 1 million blocks because the base is solid bedrock that was carved out. And there was 27, 28 years worth of time and tens of thousands of employees working year-round employees because they were not enslaved people. And so these kind of misconceptions are very valuable to debunk. And so I think that Zahi in general did a pretty good job of that in many different points of really hitting on some of those issues. There's one last theme that I think Zahi did a really good job on that I want to show. One quick second. Here we go. I got it. I got the scene. And here we go.
In the Great Pyramid most of my life, because I was the inspector of the pyramid, director of, I spent most of my life there. Then I closed this pyramid for a year to stop humidity.
To stop humidity?
Because every person,
All the breathing?
exactly, enter inside the pyramid gives about 20 grams of water. And this water becomes salt. Then mechanically, I removed the salt.
You had to clean the walls.
Exactly. And after that, I thought, how can I make a ventilation system of the pyramid? In the king chamber and the queen chamber, you have this tunnel, 20 by 20 centimeter only. Small tunnel.
Right.
Then I thought I should clean these tunnels. Then I can make a ventilation system. I had no idea of what I'm going to find out.
What'd you find out?
Then I hired a German robot. And we took the German robot to the king's chamber. We are sitting in the king's chamber with a TV screen, and the robot entered in the shaft. We found out that the interior of the pyramid, the stones, and this is why when the Arabs came to Egypt and they said, man, first time.
I think that this scene exemplifies two important aspects of Zahi Hawass's career. One, when he was in charge of the Giza Plateau, which he was throughout much of the 90s and early 2000s, much of his work was actually designed around conservation. It was designed to understand the impact of tourism, of the water table, of pollution, and that spurred scientific discovery. And so, you know, Hawass did a phenomenal job at combining kind of this sort of research with actually caretaking for the monument. And I think that that came across at several points during the interview. And I really have to tip my hat. I'm not wearing my hat right now, but I should tip my hat off to Zahi for actually trying to juggle both of those responsibilities and doing so effectively, and communicating in this podcast how effectively as well the need for conservation and how that actually led to scientific discoveries around the Sphinx and new chambers in the pyramid and very cool ventilation shafts and whatnot. Totally cool stuff, right? And at the same time, I think some of these details, you notice how he talked about breathing and how it became salty. Well, this reminded me of a tweet that I saw by this pseudo-archaeologist called Marcel Foti, who believes that the pyramids were built by conglomerate stones, geopolymers, which we know isn't true because we have the quarries. We can maybe get into that in a bit. But his evidence is that when he licks the stone that his father's friend brought back from Giza in the 1970s, it tasted salty. Well, Marcel, we know why these tasted salty. They tasted salty because even by the 1970s, countless people have been inside the pyramid and have been breathing the air. And so that's why when you lick that stone, it tastes kind of salty. It's just people's perspiration and sweat and breathing, the salt that we all have collecting on the stones of the pyramids. So Marcel Foti, you are an idiot. Okay. So, okay. That is the good. I'm not going to lie. I actually learned quite a bit from Dr. Zahi Hawass from this presentation, little details like that salt, other little details for things that I prepared for you for the next section, because we are moving on to the bad. Yes, we are definitely moving on to the bad, because there are many different things that I would consider bad. I'm just going to play this.
Photos
I'm going to play this clip again about the photos while I get this
I
ready.
can send it to you.
Can we see them are they online?
No, in my book, Giza and the Pyramids. I don't know if it's online.
I'm sure it's online. Jamie will find it.
I excavated, and these are photos in my book, Giza and the Pyramids.
Are there photos of this?
Of course, in my book.
Okay, let's find the photos of the equipment first.
So look, we'll get into these photos that Hawass did not bring. I have found all of the photos thanks to some friends and thanks to my own research over the last day. But at the same time, I want to point out that a lot of what Zahi made were somewhat honest mistakes as well. So let's move on to this little quick scene, and let's change our thing to the bad. This will probably be our longest section, the middle section, because there's a lot of stuff that Zahi could have brought with him and a lot of sort of small mistakes. On the other hand, I'm not going to be able to cover everything because I'm not going to spend 4 hours on this live stream. Nobody wants to do that. Still an honest one. I think he just made a mistake, and we'll look in why. In fact, I made a very similar mistake on Joe Rogan, as some of you might know. Let's see.
It's called the step pyramid.
Yeah.
In the pyramid text,
so that's the first one.
In the pyramid text, they say that the step pyramid is a stairs that the king is buried underneath to go to heaven.
Oh. And this one was how many years before the Great Pyramid?
It's almost 700 years.
So obviously it's not nearly as sophisticated as the Great Pyramid. So but in 700 years, they just got way better at it.
Listen. Now, on Dynasty 3, there is another pyramid was found, and only I found recently that I did not excavate it completely. I found a pyramid, which is the end of Dynasty 3, of a king called Honi. Then now we came to
His name is Horny?
Honi.
Okay.
H-U-N-I.
Okay.
Okay, so this one, the mistake was not the Pyramid of Honi. The mistake was, in case any of you missed it, how far before the Great Pyramid was the step pyramid of Djoser built at Saqqara? Zahi Hawass said 700 years. He paused before saying it. The real answer is actually 70 years. 70, not 700. And so, look, that's a very honest mistake. People are going to critique him for it. I am sure he's going to get really slammed for it. I've seen people already on Twitter, including people who trust real archaeologists on that. But it's clearly he just messed up with a digit like I did with 3 million shipwrecks instead of about 300,000. And so, look, that's just life. When you're on the spot talking about something for several hours, you're going to make mistakes. And that sort of simple mistake of 70 to 700, 3 million to 300,000, meaning mixing up a digit, That is just life, and I think we need to be gracious with people that make honest mistakes. By the way, that was a segment at the end where he talks about the evolution of the construction of different tombs and pyramid structures in Egypt. I have a phenomenal video on this, on the evolution of pyramids in Egypt, an interview with Egyptologist Dr. Beth Hart. And so I highly recommend that you check it out. But look, I mean, Zahi Hawass, I see somebody joking about he only added 1 0. Yeah, but dude, he's published this stuff. Every single publication has the correct date of Saqqara. He's given prepared presentations. They have the correct date. This is just a friggin' mistake. He obviously did not mean to make that mistake, and it's a totally honest mistake. And if you're really going to shit on him for that, that's just not fair. Now, okay. Let's move on, though, to what I would consider a more serious mistake. More serious mistakes would actually be him not being very well prepared for this conversation. So here's an example, and now we're going to dig into the photos.
When we discovered the quarry location and the base of the pyramid, we thought how they established the ramp. You know the ramp?
Right. To move
the stones.
Right.
We found out if the Egyptian will make the ramp from the quarry to the base, it will never happen. Because when you raise the base, you need to extend the ramp. Mm-hmm. We found out, listen to this carefully,
okay, that
the only way to have a permanent ramp is to come to the southwest corner of the main pyramid. They built the ramp like this.
Okay.
And I excavated. And these are photos in my book, Giza and the Pyramids. I excavated from here to here. When the Egyptian construct a ramp, when they finish building the pyramid, they demolish the ramp. They cannot demolish all of it. They have to leave something in the ground.
Okay.
Do you get this?
Yes.
I excavated from here to here. I found in situ remains of the ramp.
Are there photos of this?
Of course, in my book.
Okay, let's find the photos of the equipment first. Can't find anything?
I'll show you what I was.
It's in my book.
What did you find?
Well, nothing.
Nothing?
It's
How is that not online? That doesn't even make any
Pictures of
sense.
the
It's in my
tombs,
book,
but-
Giza and the Pyramids.
Maybe
These
look up
are the
from,
tombs.
his
Joe,
book.
these are the tombs of the pyramid builders.
Right there.
This is the excavation. And this all what I discovered. This is my discovery of everything. Every piece of sand here tells us about the builder of the pyramid. But let me continue this. I will come to you. Then now, let us. If you go to my book, you will find out that I found here the diorite and the flint tools. Listen. Then now, I will come. The stones for building the pyramid came from the plateau. The casing came from Torah. Now we come to how many years Khufu ruled. Joe, there is one big discovery happened a few years ago.
Are these the tools?
No. This is tools for artists. The tools in our book, which is big diorite tools and big flint tools, big ones.
And why is this not online?
Quick point, I am a big flint tool. Oh, yeah.
It's in my book.
Right, but I mean, wouldn't that be everywhere? I mean, that's such a huge archaeological discovery.
It's not. It's because it's everywhere. It's not only in the Workman only. It's in every site. You have these tools in many sites.
Right, but why aren't these tools online? That's all I'm asking.
Ask the people online, but they are remains in my book.
Are they in a museum somewhere?
There is some in the Cairo Museum.
So yeah, so this clearly shows one of the issues with how Zahi intended to show up and talk. He's used to a good crowd. He's used to people that take him seriously, and so he did not feel the need to prepare these kind of images, claiming they're in his book. And it's true. If you go to museums that have archaeological finds from Egypt, either in the UK or the US, or like the Ashmolean in the UK, or the British Museum in the UK, the Met and other places in the US, the Penn Museum. You can see these tools on display, as well as, of course, in museums in Egypt. So I have found these photos. So Joe Rogan, I hope you're watching so that you can see. These are the photos from his book of the tools used to build the pyramids. This is the diorite. It's also called dolerite. Similar stones, they're somewhat interchangeable. It has to do with crystal size. This is one of the mallets, for example, that was discovered, a wooden mallet where it was worn, where it repeatedly hit the head of a copper chisel. And so we have these enormous stones, some made of dolerite or diorite, some made of flint, used to actually quarry large friggin' blocks, okay? And we don't just have them at Giza and the workers' village, which Zahi was describing. We have them at a range of other places. And yes, some of these exist online. You just have to know how to search for them. For example, the Dixon relics, 2 of which exist in the British Museum. This is online. This is one of these dolerite pounders that was used to quarry and bash stones to shape them into rough shape. Not for the fine working to make them look nice, but to bash them and shape them. So you'd start with something angular like this, and it would slowly be bashed down until it becomes spherical over use. And guess where this dolerite pounder was found? It was found in 1872 in the Great Pyramid. So, you know, a pretty good find context for these kind of things. And yes, they are online. Though you have to know how to search. You have to search for dolerite pounders. If you search for dolerite pounders, well, you actually end up finding all kinds of articles on them. For example, this one that looked at petrology, so the grains of the stone themselves to understand them, as well as doing experimental archaeology to understand how they were. And so this study, for example, documented 1,419 of them from Aswan, from quarries as well, used for quarrying and dressing granite at Aswan. And in fact, you can see the reduction over time, where they start off as those larger angular stones, and as they are worked, they are worn down, reduced into those spherical stones. And so that's how you get something like this, or a sharper one, maybe for cutting, quarrying out a block, into something like these. And here on Nova, Mark Lehner and Zahi Hawass and others have presented using these, hafting these kind of pounders onto stones in order to do this. And so you seriously just need to know the jargon, know the details in order to find the stuff online, because otherwise you're not going to be able to. Another big component of that little clip were these ramps. So this is the ramp that Dr. Hawass and Dr. Lehner published in Giza in the pyramids. This was the photo he was talking about. It's actually from the Old Kingdom, and it's the southern end of a mastaba, G220, 5220 in the Western Cemetery. But not in the book, but elsewhere, Dr. Hawass has published the ramp that was used for building the Great Pyramid that, yes, he has excavated. This is from a 1998 book chapter, Pyramid Construction, New Evidence Discovered at Giza. This is a drawing of the ramp. That's of the actual profile as they saw it. This is their reconstruction of how Dr. Hawass, Zahi Hawass, thought the ramps were used for the pyramid. This is a little more speculative. This is a potential model for this internal ramp model for how the pyramid could have been built. But you want a nice photo of this, you have to go to a book, right? So one of the key lessons here is, if you want to do real research, if you want to do research for yourself, my friends, you're going to have to go to a library. Not everything exists on the internet. So if you're really interested in ramps and ramp technologies in ancient Egypt for building the pyramids, well, guess what? There's a whole lot of diagrams and a whole lot of photos in the book by Dieter Arnold, Building in Egypt, from a couple decades ago. And here, for example, this is the retaining walls of a huge ramp southeast of the Great Pyramid of Khufu, or Cheops, depending on how you want to call them. That's the Greek name. But Khufu, this is for the Great Pyramid, the massive ramp, the southeast corner that Zahi Hawass was talking about. Or there's, for example, this ramp at the Pyramid of Amenemhat the First, I can't pronounce that, at least, and it was reinforced with timbers, okay? Or, for example, these transport roads leading from local quarries to the northern pyramid of Sneferu at Dashur. Or, for example, boat timber reused to reinforce transport roads at the Pyramid of Senusret or Senowasret the First. Man, I'm not pronouncing these things. I should drink some more beer, I think. Or, for example, this slideway with boat timber overlaying inclined bricks of the western ramp of the Pyramid of Senwosret the First. So we have multiple examples, multiple photos, multiple drawings of the stratigraphy that archaeologists have found, like this third dynasty pyramid at Sinki. Yes, this is from before the Great Pyramid, so we can see the development of ramps over time, as well as the one at the Great Pyramid built in the fourth dynasty. Or these brick ramps under the pavement of the Sun Temple of Niuserra at Abu Ghurab. These brick ramps over here that archaeologists have investigated. Or guess what? The Egyptians wrote down stuff and they left us diagrams of how they did this stuff. This is an example of a construction ramp depicted on the tomb of Rekhmira at Thebes. Look at this. Beautiful ramp. They even show how they reinforce it with blocks going in different ways, just like you see bricks today. A wall does not have bricks that are, stacked on top. They stagger or they go in different directions in order to make them more durable and sturdy. Well, the ancient Egyptians did that with their ramps as well. Here's another image from the same tomb, and you can see this individual actually constructing this ramp. Right there, this is the ramp right here coming up. And so it gives you a clear sense of it and people under it. And so, yes, ancient Egyptians show us how they do that, which is dang fucking cool. And I wish that Zahi Hawass had the foresight to actually show this kind of research to the audience. Because one of the things that I've found as an archaeologist is that, we have all kinds of really cool images. And people learn from images, right? These kind of images showing the actual ramps that archaeologists have uncovered and showing how Egyptians painted them on their walls, showing the construction process of the pyramids. That's how people learn, right? And so, again, I mean, this is something that I really do wish that Zahi had done a slightly better job explaining to people. Okay, let's move on to the next photo that Zahi should have brought. And Zahi, if you're watching, I mean this in good fun, though we will get to the ugly in a bit. You might not like that part as much. But the bad, I wish you'd come in a little better prepared, but you shared real good info here.
Before I tell you about what I discovered, I have to complete the scene that I told you, that I found workmen dragging a capstone. You remember? You asked me that. We stopped on that. Mm-hmm. Above the capstone, there is a hieroglyphic word called Jaim. And Jaim means white and yellow gold. A second scene I found, ladies dancing. And they call them the Khenner. And the Khenner are the dance troupe of the king. My interpretation of these two scenes. When the pyramid was finished, the king asked the workmen to put the capstone in the top of the pyramid. Mm-hmm. When they put the capstone in the top of the pyramid, cased with gold, the whole country dance and sing because the king became a god. That's what I call the national project of the whole nation. The 3 millions who lived in Egypt in the time of the Old Kingdom, all of them participated in building the pyramid to make the king as a god.
This is your theory?
Not a theory.
No?
It's fact. It is a fact. The pyramid was the national project.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, it's your theory that the capstone was put on and...
It's not a theory. Yeah. It's based on evidence. I found the scenes.
The papyri.
No, the papyri is something else.
What are the scenes?
It's blocks.
Blocks?
Limestone blocks. One scene, workmen dragging a capstone with the word Jaim.
Is this written in limestone blocks? Is this what you're saying?
No, it show the workman dragging a stone
Shows it where?
in the stone that I discovered.
So it's carved into the stone.
Exactly. And the word Ja'im in hieroglyphic above that.
Where's that at?
It's an Abu Sir. I found
But
it.
are there photographs online? that we can
Yes,
see?
in my book. I don't.
Boy.
I don't go online. Why I have to go online? I go to my book.
Oh no, I understand. But for everybody else that
I
doesn't
think
have
you
immediate
should-
access to your
you
book.
should really. Did you find them online? It's called the Abu.
Okay, so this one, I have to say, Zahi not only did not bring his photos, but he got a couple things wrong. So let's get into that and what he got right. He got a lot right as well. One quick second. So yeah, wait, let me pull this up. Where is it? Where is it? We have it. We have it. Yes, we do. It is right here. So first of all, the key mistake that Zahi made, there were a couple. One is that this is not from his book. Now, there are two different editions of his book. I had access to the one from the University of Chicago Press. There's also a version of the book from the American University in Cairo. So it's possible that it's in the book from the American University in Cairo. I had to do some library work to track down this image, and we're going to zoom in and we're going to look at what we're looking at. This is in Sahura, volume 16 by Awadi, published not that long ago. I think it was about 10 years ago. And this shows the dragging of the capstone, the pyramidion, the triangular capstone that goes on top of the pyramids for the pyramid of Sahura and at Abu Sir. And Zahi Hawass did find this stone. He did not find the pyramid itself, but he was doing some conservation work and some renovation work to make sure that tourists have better accessibility by building a pathway at Abu Sir. And in the process of cleaning and doing that construction work, they found a series of stones with reliefs. Yes, many of this stones in this pyramid had these decorative reliefs. And these specific stones that he found show this scene. So what you're seeing is a scene of celebration. Right down here, we're seeing animal sacrifice for feasting. Up here, we see a series of food and wine and drink for the big feast. We have people carrying in the funerary goods into the pyramid. So this is at the very end of construction. And it's right here, this row of people dragging this rope. They are dragging that triangular pyramidion stone. Now, the other, let's have some more beer. The other big thing that Zahi Hawass got wrong is this does not show the pyramidion stone. The pyramidion stone is somewhere over here. It's on a block to the right that archaeologists have never found. So now you're saying this is just a theory, right? This is just your theory that they're dragging the pyramidion. How do we know that? Well, guess what, guys? We know that because the Egyptians told us. Right here is the hieroglyph for the pyramidion. It's a hieroglyph that's known on other texts as well. We know because the Egyptians told us in writing that these dudes here, this large work group, were dragging the pyramidion stone to complete the pyramid of Sahura. So, I think we can trust this. This is actually really good evidence of exactly what he's talking about. This block shows this kind of national pride of finishing the pyramid, having a celebration. The last step, of course, is filling the pyramid with the grave goods and to put the pyramidion stone on, and then everybody eats, drinks, and is merry. So yeah, kind of cool that we have this kind of direct evidence. And there's other reliefs that also name the pyramidion stone. I just grabbed this one image. There's another one where the hieroglyphs directly tell you that it is the pyramidion stone. So Zahi Hawass was in general not wrong there. He was mostly correct, though he did get a few things wrong. It's certainly not in the American version of the book. And there is no depiction of the pyramidion stone being dragged. Instead, we have the people dragging the missing pyramidion stone, but the writing tells us, the ancient Egyptians tell us in writing what they are doing, because, the ancient Egyptians told us about the pyramids and how they built them. They also told us about what they were, which was tombs. You know, we have this writing. So like you could choose not to believe them, but you're kind of being silly if you're choosing not to believe them. But you know, to each your own. I'm hoping to convince some people here, but you can go on believing what you want as long as you're not rude. Okay, so next scene. This is an important one. This is a very important one, actually. One of the most important ones.
For the king.
I understand the national project, but what I don't understand is the physics involved in moving
if you don't,
80-ton blocks 500 miles through the mountains.
If you don't believe on this.
It's not that I don't believe. I just want to know.
Inside this block.
Hold on. It's not that I don't believe. I want you to explain to me how you think they did it.
I explained to you.
From 500 miles away, from 50 to 80-ton blocks.
This comes through the Nile. You can bring all the stones.
Right, but the quarries were in the mountains, right?
No, the quarries, the granite quarries in Aswan, and we have cutting of the obelisks and cutting of the stones and cut of everything in the site. And they brought, when the flood comes in July, they bring boats through the flood. They bring us out of the stones to Giza Plateau.
They plan things for the floods, and then they would figure out some sort of a raft system to get them on and then move them that way.
Now, if we now do not believe that this cannot be moved by human being, okay? But on the other side, what I can tell you, inside, above these blocks, written the names of the gangs who built the pyramid, above the king's chamber. One of the names, Friends of Khufu. I did a 3D few months ago, and we recorded in the 5 chambers that has these huge blocks. We found 2 more names of the gangs. One name called those who are connected with the goddess Wajat, and written year 13 of Khufu's reign on the 3rd chamber. I took Mr. Beast with me 2 months ago. I took him and I showed him how these blocks, they were written by the workmen before they moved these stones. Mm-hmm. And in the 4th room, we have the good God, another name, was year 13 of Khufu's reign. This is when they moved the stones.
So I understand what you're saying. So you're saying that they took these stones, they waited for the flood season, they got these stones on rafts, they moved them down the river, they got them to the site. How did they get them 120 feet in the air?
You know, again, this is the most important thing. This is the national project.
Oh, I understand. It was very valuable to them. I just wondered what technology was used.
No technology.
Well, technology is tools. Technology is levers.
Okay, the technology,
whatever they had at the time was their current technology.
The huge wooden sledges.
Huge wooden sledges.
This is the only way that today we move huge stones. This is how my workmen moved 20 tons sarcophagus in a tomb.
How far did they move it?
They moved it just a few feet away. Mm-hmm. But
okay, so let's get into some of this technology. I think it's time to do that. I think it's a very useful thing to do. I have a few fun things to show here. So first of all, I meant to show this one ramp, which is really cool. This is a quarry used for construction, the huge alabaster blocks. Here, wait, let me turn off this stupid thing. So this is a quarry that has been under excavation recently at the Hot Noob Quarries. And what's really cool is not only does it have a ramp, but it actually has places to slot in ropes. In a sense, here we go. Along the sides of the ancient ramp are 2 staircases lined with post holes to which ropes were likely tied thousands of years ago to drag these huge stone blocks. So we can actually see this technology in situ, not just the ramp itself coming from the quarry, but the ways in which they'd be able to move it, to pull it, as well as pushing it up a ramp, because ancient Egyptians were not stupid. Zahi also mentioned that we have found sledges wooden sledges. Well, there's one on view at the Metropolitan Museum of Art from the mortuary complex of Senwosret I. There are dozens and dozens of these that have been discovered. There's several on display, obviously, in ancient Egypt as well. And we have, well, a lot more detail than just this on the technology that the Egyptians used to quarry and move enormous blocks. So, for example, this is the famous one scene that I think that it was actually discussed on here on the podcast. I don't think I showed the clip of moving this 60-ton statue for this tomb of Jehuti-Hotep at Deir el-Barsha. So this is Jehuti-Hotep, and there are 172 workers pulling this statue across the sand. And look at this fancy technology. There's somebody here pouring out water in front of the sledge to wet the sand to reduce the friction so that it is actually easier to pull. And you might think this made the news not that long ago. And it actually is kind of funny because people doubt this. They say, oh, they used water. Fancy, fancy, fancy. Guess what? Egyptologists have known this for decades because there's not just one, but there are dozens of depictions of people moving statues and using water to make the friction less by wetting the sand. For example, these here at the tomb of Nefer-Irtenef at Saqqara, which is dated to, not that long after the construction of the Great Pyramid, just 150 years later or so. Here we are with these statues, larger than life-size statues on wooden sledges. Here are people pouring water in front of them to make it easier to drag a large stone statue that would have weighed several tons. Obviously, this does not require a team of 172 because it's not such a monumental statue, but the same methods work, whether it's a statue that's 2 times human size made out of granite, or whether it's 10 times human size and weighs 60 tons or 100 tons. The same methods work. It just requires more people to pull it. Here we have another one from 50 years later at the Tombeau de Ti, also at Saqqara from about 2400 BC. Again, somebody pouring out water right in front of the sledge and a team of people dragging it. Or, for example, here's another 2 examples from this same cemetery at Saqqara of people dragging statues as a team and dumping down water in order to reduce the friction in order to do this. Now, we talk about rafting. How do we move large, giant stones on the Nile? Is this possible? Oh my God, are the physics beyond us? Is the technology beyond this? Well, here is an obelisk of, wait, how large was this? I think it's more than 60 tons. It's the second biggest of all of the ancient obelisks. It weighs 343 tons. Sorry about that. 300 tons we are talking about here. Moving this obelisk of Hatshepsut, which we actually have the obelisk of Hatshepsut, by the way. Here we go. The obelisk of Hatshepsut, the second largest of all of the ancient Egyptian obelisks. And guess what? There's a depiction of this in the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut, right? Here it is, a giant barge that was constructed. Here is the obelisk right here. It is clearly depicted how the Egyptians solved the problem of moving a stone of 343 tons. They were able to do this using Bronze Age technology, and they showed us in their art that they did this, in addition to the fact that we know they did this because these obelisks and other large stones have moved from a quarry to their location where they were constructed. So we have all this cool interlocking evidence, and we think, oh man, this must have been tough. It's only the Egyptians that could have done this. No, man, the Romans figured this out. For example, in the Iron Age, in the Roman Iron Age, another 330-ton obelisk was transported from Egypt to Rome by the ancient Romans after they conquered Egypt, after, during the early Roman Empire. And in fact, they did 2 of these. And what's really kind of cool is they actually, they're part of a fun story. of how they did this. So Pliny the Elder tells us how you go about doing this. So first of all, a canal was dug from the River Nile to where the obelisk lay in Egypt. Then 2 broad vessels, which were already laden down with stones of similar stone, to equal double the size, right? So that you could have double the weight to make sure that this boat is not going to get stuck on the way there. They were brought there, and as the obelisk was loaded onto the boat, they removed stones to make it lighter until they eventually got it fully on board, supported by the opposite sides of the canal. The extremities of the obelisk remained supported by the opposite sides of the canal, and the blocks of stone were then removed and the vessels were lightened, and then the boat rose up and met the burden, and then they were able to transport these to Rome. And what's really interesting is that these 2 ships were specially built in order to transport these enormous obelisks to Rome, and then they were purposely sunk. One of them was sunk by the Emperor Claudius to build the Portus Harbor at Ostia, and the other was burned down during Caligula's reign while on display in the Puteoli Harbor. So we have really good kind of evidence for this. And then I have one last story to tell you, which is more recent. Let me see if I can find this. Do you remember that British Museum piece, those Dixon relics? Well, this is a story about that guy that found the Dixon relics, Wayneman Dixon, who found those relics. He actually, in 1877, he designed this cylinder here to move the famous obelisk called Cleopatra's Needle to London in 1877, using fairly primitive, not modern technology to be able to figure out how to transport it. What they did was he designed these cylinders so they could roll it down the hill till they could get it on a boat. And again, in 1877, they had to build a special boat, a type of pontoon that could then be dragged by another boat all the way to England so that this obelisk could make it to England. And so, this is not fancy technology either. This is not using machinery. This is not using much of anything other than more traditional technology in order to move a several 100-ton large stone, because incredibly smart people can do this with Bronze Age technology, with Iron Age technology. Maximus Beardsley, I have a photo of this from 1877. We have descriptions of it from the ancient Roman periods, and we have a drawing, an artistic depiction of it from the ancient Egyptian periods. So Maximus Beardsley, I don't know who you are. You've been trolling me politely for a while. I feel like you're probably Dandy Dunker. We have all this evidence. It's really quite clear that it's possible to move several 100-ton stones up ramps, over water, and in different places. And the Romans knew this. The Greeks, when they described how the pyramids were built, Herodotus, they did not doubt that these stones could be moved. There's no need for fancy special technology. Levers, pulleys, ropes, sledges, boats. All specially, and thousands of labor, of people that are willing to work hard. So, all these things together let you do these kind of things. Okay, I think I had one more example from the bad before we move to the ugly. Let's see what we got. Where am I? Oh, yeah, this one. All right, 1 second. I got to pull this up. I got all animated about moving large stones, because moving large stones is pretty fucking cool. And I think it's important for people to realize that people have been moving large stones, cultures all over the world for thousands of years, over 10,000 years if you look at Göbekli Tepe and other similar sites. Okay, here we go. Boom. Here we go. Next, let's get back up. The last of the bad before we move on to the ugly.
Now, the second void behind the northern tunnel, another small void. Inside this void, we can see hieroglyphic inscriptions.
Really? So those are the only hieroglyphics on the Great Pyramid, right?
And I can show you the footage in my.
Do you have the footage here?
If you can come to my lecture.
Oh, come on,
in Houston.
Man. Well, what about right here, right now?
I can send it to you.
Where do you have it? Do you have it on you?
In my computer.
Where's your computer?
In Las Vegas.
Oh, well, fuck.
But I can send it to you before
Yeah,
you
but I want to show it on the show.
show it in the show. I can
Like
send it
this
to you
show.
tomorrow.
Okay. You can send it tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. We'll splice it in, folks.
Then tomorrow I will
Okay.
send it to you.
Please do. Okay. I'll
Now.
give you my email.
Now.
I'll give you Jamie's email.
Yeah, give me.
So this is a shame that that these images never made it in, and I'm unclear exactly what Zahi is talking about here. I think he's trying to talk about a new discovery that he's made and has not made public yet. So in that sense, I do not have access to that kind of advanced knowledge, let's say, of the new hieroglyphs that Zahi has found. But I do want to show you some of the hieroglyphs that have been found in the Great Pyramid. You'll oftentimes see online people saying there are no hieroglyphs in the Great Pyramid. That is wrong. There are dozens of hieroglyphs actually in the Great Pyramid, and they all reference Khufu specifically. And they were in an area that was specifically closed off, this void that was only able to be accessed by Colonel Vise by dynamite. So we know that they are ancient and they date to the time period in which they were built. I have a video where I go in more detail on this, where I review Mr. Beast's trip to the pyramids and how he smacks down. Reality is we found kind of several of these pseudo-archaeological hypotheses, and I talk at length and show several images of these hieroglyphs that are found inside the Great Pyramid. And in many ways, I saw people talking about this online. I saw people talking about it in the chats on YouTube, and people were saying, man, it's a shame he didn't show this, because this would be a smoking gun that these pyramids were built by the people that claim they built them, because they wrote about it in here. And yes, there's dozens of stones. Many of them mention the name of Khufu in this hieratic script, which they went into in a little bit of depth in here. So they're there, and what they actually are is they're mason marks that name the different workman teams that were working on the Great Pyramids, and so they can be used to organize moving different stones at different times up the blocks, up the ramps, and where they go inside the pyramid. And again, we know that these are in progress mason's marks. We have them at a variety of other pyramids and sites around Egypt. If you look at Mark Lehner's book, The Complete Pyramids, they go in depth on that as well. I quote from that in that video I linked above about Mr. Beast and how these mason's marks, similar ones to this that oftentimes name the pharaoh, are found in many constructions across Egypt. And so, yeah, there's several examples of Khufu being named inside the Great Pyramid, dated directly to the construction of the pyramid. So yeah, I think it's important for us to recognize that, because that is in many ways the smoking gun. And that actually reminds me, I'm going to go back to the good really quickly, because there was one clip that I meant to play. Let's see if I can find it. This actually, I think, is the key part. We're just going to go back to the good one last time before we go to the ugly of this conversation. This, I think, was Zahi Hawass's clearest point, and I hope the kind of point that I'm trying to make here.
Get this?
Yes.
We have in Egypt 120 pyramids. We don't have only Khufu pyramid that everyone is talking about. You have 120 pyramids. Mm-hmm. This is one of them.
Right.
But the reason that this pyramid is so accurate and strong, because Giza Plateau is the only site in Egypt of the pyramids. It's a part of the Mokattam Formation. It has.
So yeah, I think this is important. We modern scholars put together what we say based off of a wide variety of independent lines of evidence. I have shown so far stratigraphic evidence for ramps. I've showed examples from quarries. I've showed art, and I've showed hieroglyphs that the Egyptians used to tell us what they were doing. I also referred to later periods of people solving similar problems using similar technology. And so I think that this is important to get across in a really clear way, that there are 120 pyramids in Egypt. We don't just study the pyramid of Khufu in order to understand how the pyramid of Khufu was built. We actually look at a wider range of evidence, and that's really important. Okay, The moment is upon us. Zahi, I suggest you tune out now, because now I'm going to be much more critical of you for the next ending here, because there were a few ugly parts here where I think Zahi, unfortunately, really dropped the ball in representing archaeology and Egyptology for the public. And I say that with respect. Zahi Hawass is in many ways one of the greatest public communicators in our field. Certainly, if he's not the most famous archaeologist in the world, he is up there, which definitely demonstrates his skill at public communication. But that he's not above critique, okay? And he did not just make a few innocent errors of forgetting to prepare in depth for these millions of people that would see him, nor did he just make a few casual mistakes at times. So what's the worst mistakes that he made that are going to do real harm to the field and its public perception in the future?
I discovered
Let's check this out.
a tomb in a site called Abu Sir, and we discovered thousands of animal bones. But now we discovered that they slaughter 11 cows and 33 goats. We discovered that all the stones of the 3 pyramids at Giza, the stones came from quarries in the site itself. Then now, when we discovered the quarry location and the base of the pyramid, and this all what I discovered, this is my discovery of everything. I discovered 20 tombs.
Are these the tools?
I discovered in my excavation in front of Khufu Pyramid, there is a village. And I discovered all of this. And this is published. I discovered in a site called Abu Sir, I discovered 2 scenes. And I will tell you what I discovered inside the pyramid now.
Okay.
I tell you about what I discovered. I have to complete the scene that I told you in the stone that I discovered.
So it's carved into the stone.
Exactly. And now what we are going to do.
So this is the only pyramid, can I ask you though? This hieroglyphics inside this chamber that you've discovered, these are the only hieroglyphics in the Great Pyramid, is that correct?
No, there is in the 5. I want to show the whole world what I discovered inside the pyramid. That we are not hiding anything.
No,
No, I am the one who found it. This is not...
no, I understand you found it, but they also discovered it. They showed that it exists using the same technique.
No,
Jamie, pull up that.
This is wrong.
Using these techniques, things that we know that you discovered that absolutely exist.
Now, they did not discover the Osiris shaft again.
Okay. You discovered it, but they used their technology.
I'm excavating also in the Valley of the Kings.
Right.
And I discovered major important things. Is based on evidence. Like I discovered the Golden City. In the city, we discovered the names everywhere of King Amenhotep III. Because most of the information that's written on pyramids are wrong.
Most of it?
Most of it.
In archaeology books?
In archaeology books.
Really?
Except me and Mark Leaner.
You guys are the only ones that have it right?
Because I have been working in Giza for the last 57 years of my life. I excavated every piece of sand.
That last scene in particular boiled my blood. That kind of ego, I get that it is a valuable asset at times to pat yourself on the back, but to really claim that all of his colleagues that he's collaborated with and their publications are bunk, or even the colleagues that work in Egypt, to try to say that kind of stuff and to only give credit for himself is absolutely inappropriate. It's absolutely insulting to the field itself, which he is representing here. And it's just, everybody was laughing at him online from what I could see, from everybody saying, I discovered. And look, full credit to Dr. Hawass. He has had a phenomenal career, and I've already showed you a number of the discoveries and publications that he has done. He's published a whole lot. He's discovered a whole lot. But all of that was done in collaboration with colleagues. And most of what he claimed, there's the one clip that Joe Rogan's team released was the clip right after that, which is what archaeologists have gotten wrong, right? This is the one clip that they published, because this fits Joe Rogan's narrative, what archaeologists have wrong about Egypt. But most of these things in this 15-minute clip are not things that archaeologists today actually claim or get wrong. They get it right because they read Zahi's stuff and then they publish it as well and add to it, and it's a collaborative process. It's the internet and people on the internet that are getting these kind of things wrong. Still, it's people from 30 years ago, scholars from 30 years ago, who got these things wrong, and then since then they've been updated based off of the work of tens of thousands of people, scholars, workmen, Gufti, students, and others. And to just in this kind of way to claim credit for everything is very inappropriate and insulting to his colleagues, and it does not present well the field at all. And if you saw my appearance on Joe Rogan, I cited dozens, maybe even hundreds of different scholars that I named while there. If you watch my videos, I cite and I give credit to the field. And the fact that Zahi Hawass represents our field and he's not giving credit to his colleagues is absolutely inappropriate, absolutely ugly. He is obviously a phenomenal scholar who's had a phenomenal career and has done a lot, but that kind of ego is not called for. He should be far more gracious with his colleagues. Okay, another few ugly things that he got extremely wrong would be things. I saw a bunch of people, I wasn't actually going to include this, but we'll talk about this really quickly. The King's List and Zep Tepi.
Their stuff. Tell me about Zep Tepi.
What's Zep Tepi? What's this?
You never heard about... Have you heard about about the King's List, right? The old King's List that goes back 30,000 whatever years.
Who said that?
You never seen it? It's not in hieroglyphs.
This is not true.
Is that true?
No. This is a speculation from people who knows nothing about history. There is nothing King List dated back 30,000 years ago at all.
So why do people keep saying that?
Because they don't know. It's speculation. Give me one evidence of that.
Okay, so the problem here is Zahi's not familiar with the pseudo-archaeological narratives that he's coming up against. He claims he listens to the public and stuff like that. He mentioned that when he was open-minded.
I am the only Egyptologist who have an open mind.
Really?
That I always look. I always look at what the public say, and I will.
And he clearly does not always look at what the public is saying, because he would know what Zep Tepi is. And this is an understandable mistake, by the way, that he made, because it's not called Zep Tepi in any scholarship. It's called Zbj Tbj. That's how it's spelled in hieroglyphs. And I'm not even sure how it would be pronounced. But when he hears Zep Tepi, he doesn't know what Joe Rogan is talking about. And when Joe Rogan talks about King's Lists that go back 30,000 years, that's not true either. We do have King's Lists, but they don't go back that far at all. They go back to the fucking first dynasty, okay? Is the historical King's List that we have used and tested with radiocarbon dates and with artifacts and with excavation over time. So Zahi Hawass is actually correct in everything that he says there, but what he did not do was actually get informed about the branch of pseudo-archaeology that Sitchin and Hancock and Rogan all promote. And so him coming into this venue unprepared for that kind of argument is a real kind of issue. Similarly, he makes a very similar mistake when talking about the SAR technology. I will show a little clip from that right now. He clearly was not prepared to speak on this topic in a very detailed way, let's say. Let's see, where is this?
To the Sphinx?
Well, I'm fascinated by a lot of aspects of Khufu's pyramid. Well, one of the big ones that's come up very recently that I'm sure you're aware of is these satellite radar. Was it called tomographic? What is it called? Tomographic? Where they think that there's these pillars underneath the structure.
Okay. I investigated this. First of all, these two scholars from Italy, They have never been in Egypt. They have never worked in the pyramids before.
Right. But they're using satellite information.
Number
though.
2, they published their article in a journal. This journal do not send their article to referees. You pay a fee to publish the article in your responsibility.
Okay.
Number 3, I am not a scientist. I took these techniques that they used and I gave it to expertise. And they said, these techniques cannot show underneath a solid rock of almost 600 feet down. No way.
Why can't they?
They said this technique cannot show that.
But these scientists are saying they can. Do you know about the Osiris shaft? How they've got
I
scanned?
discovered it.
You did, right?
Yes.
But do you know that they use this tomographic
No,
radar? And they,
no, I am the one who found it. This is not
no, I understand you found it. But they also discovered it. They showed that it exists using the same
He's just not coming here prepared to be able to debunk these claims. And I mean, the argument about this gets even more heated.
under the pyramid. The Osiris shaft that I found was only as accurate. I asked every person who knows about radar, ultrasound, all the people work with me. The Scan Pyramid project, they said this is bullshit. It cannot happen at all. Now, tell me.
So you're telling me that these scientists that are proclaiming the capabilities of these satellite tomography devices that are saying that they can see kilometers into the ground with this stuff.
That's not true. I did.
Are you sure?
I did.
Do you understand the technology?
No,
You
not,
don't.
not me.
So
But
you're
I
just
but I
listening to
asked
other people.
scientists who are in this field.
Have you talked to these scientists that are saying that they have these discoveries?
I made a press release.
But did you?
So yeah, he's just sort of not able to actually specifically debunk them. Instead, he talks about what he finds. If you want a comprehensive debunking of this SAR theory, I have a couple different videos on this. I talked with the scholar that wrote the textbook on satellite remote sensing in archaeology, Dr. Sarah Parkak, and I highly recommend checking out that video. I also have a fantastic live stream. 1 second, let me get the links in here. I also have a live stream where I went through the archaeological evidence that debunks that idea. Interview with Dr. Parkak on satellite remote sensing. And we specifically discuss these new findings in there. And then I've also gone directly into the archaeological evidence that debunks this idea of structures underneath the Giza pyramid, going directly into the geology and into the hydrology of the Giza plateau to show why there's no possible way that giant structures exist under the Great Pyramids, the three pyramids on the Giza plateau, because it's solid bedrock with a water table there. I can show you a few slides here, though, for those of you that might not be interested. We actually have a fairly clear understanding of the hydrology and the geology of the Giza plateau. It's been intensively investigated, yes, by Zahi Hawass, but also by many other scholars. This paper by Shisha et al. Talks about the water table during the 4th dynasty and how high it was actually, so that they could ship stones all the way up to the Giza plateau. As well, you can see even more recently photographs that show how high the water level is in this area. So a structure going down 2 kilometers would have been underwater, which of course is what they talk about. We also understand the geology of this area. We've had dozens of geologists, from people that some of you might have heard of, like Robert Schoch, to many others like Mahmoud Sharafeldin here, that show the geological map of Giza and the bedrock, when the bedrock was formed, how deep it goes, and where it is located, these different branches of bedrock. And we can actually see this all in relation to the water table itself. Zahi actually discusses in this talk about the Sphinx, where with Joe Rogan, I mean, he talks about how the water table is rising in recent years. So they did a deep investigation of the water table around the Sphinx because the Sphinx is on the lower edge. And so they were able to actually be sure there's no tunnels under the Sphinx. That's good, Zahi. You should have showed some photos. That's in my Mr. Beast video. But this is the kind of detailed knowledge we have of the water table and just how shallow it is at Giza. And during the 4th dynasty and during earlier periods when the Sahara was green, the water table would have been even higher. Things like the Sphinx could not have existed because it would have been underwater, for example. If you model the water table from the period of the Green Sahara before the construction of the pyramids and the Sphinx. So we know all this kind of stuff. And yes, I think I saw somebody note that Zahi made an honest mistake. Let's get an example of an honest mistake, but one that he probably could have prepared better for when he was asked about the water table. Let's see. Where is that? Yeah, so you can see here, just after 2 hours of conversing, Zahi is in his second language, and he got a little tired. He makes an honest mistake here, which he then corrects, right?
The echoey though.
Oh, here's another problem with the idea that these Italians are proposing. Isn't there a water table under the pyramid that's like 1 million years old?
No.
There's not water underneath there?
No. This is the Osiris shaft that was full of water.
So is that what Mr. Beast was swimming in?
Exactly.
But where's that water coming from?
It's a water table.
Oh, there is a water table.
This shaft.
So, you know, this is an example of something that was an honest mistake, but where if he would have brought this up much earlier during, this is half an hour, 45 minutes later than the clips I showed just before, they could have easily and much more clearly debunked the points that about this SAR findings, which are not findings at all. It's total bunk. So, you know, that's obviously a real problem, because you need to understand the narratives that you're up against and be ready to debunk them when you have millions of people who are going to tune in, millions of people that are skeptical of real archaeology, and you are not actually addressing these kind of issues. Okay, I have 2 more examples of fairly ugly things, let's say, where it could have been much better prepared. Let's see, here we go.
Debate with you. I saw a debate with you and Graham Hancock, and there was another archaeologist.
That was
But hold on. The other archaeologist was saying, if you're saying that something happened 10,000 years ago, where's the evidence of any civilization from 10,000 years ago?
Exactly.
But then you found Göbekli Tepe. So Göbekli Tepe was buried over 11,000 years ago.
That's not true. I never heard about this.
What do you mean it's not true?
It's not true what I told you.
What is not true?
It never happened.
Tepe?
We never discovered this at all.
Wait a minute. Göbekli Tepe is in Turkey. Okay.
Oh, in Turkey. Listen.
Yes. Göbekli Tepe is in Turkey. I know.
But
more than 11,000 years old.
Okay, fine.
It's very complex stone structures.
Fine.
But this was the evidence. Hold on.
No,
this is the evidence in the argument. The argument was there was no evidence of an ancient civilization from 10,000 plus years ago. This is before the discovery of Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe gets discovered, known to be more than 11,000 years ago. That changes everything. Because now we know. Yes, it does.
That's changed
now,
for what?
Because now we know there was an advanced civilization capable of a spectacular construction 11,000 plus years ago.
This is what. Listen. Look at the archaeologist.
Okay. This is a real problem with Zahi Hawass. He doesn't even seem to recognize and understand what Göbekli Tepe is, which is obviously an extremely important and really cool site. You can always go and check my interview with Lee Clare, the field director at Göbekli Tepe, if you want to know what's happening at Göbekli Tepe and the behind the scenes kind of details about what archaeologists are saying about Göbekli Tepe. Let me post that in here. Since we have so many people watching, this is kind of fun. So this is a problem. Zahi should realize that Göbekli Tepe is like catnip for these individuals. Göbekli Tepe, Joe Rogan has talked about it on dozens and dozens of podcasts. Jamie Corsetti, Graham Hancock, etc. It is also on the cover of archaeology textbooks. It's made big news in Real Archaeology, obviously. But the way that Joe Rogan is describing it is completely false. This is not the truth behind Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe was built over 11,000 years ago, but we already had Natufian construction in that region by hunter-gatherers building fairly large structures 12,000 years ago. We also already discovered in the 1960s, we have the tower at Jericho, or Tel Sultan, which is this enormous tower right here that dates to the exact same period as Göbekli Tepe, nearly 10,000 years ago, the pre-pottery Neolithic. This was excavated by Kathleen Kenyon. This is wrong. This is, well, yeah, okay, it's about 7,000, 8,000 years ago for the tower at Jericho. And so, no, 7,000 to 8,000 BC, I should say. So 9,000 to 10,000 years ago from the pre-pottery Neolithic B, which, by the way, is the exact same phase that Göbekli Tepe dates to, the pre-pottery Neolithic B. This tower was excavated in the 1960s by Kathleen Kenyon. So archaeologists have known that monumental construction has gone back at least 9,000 years. Enormous monumental construction, by the way. How large is this, you ask? This is, let's see, it is 23 feet in diameter, this tower right here. So this is enormous. This is far larger than any of the constructions actually at Göbekli Tepe. In terms of pure size, as one feature, it is far larger than any of the single T-pillars that were built and placed at Göbekli Tepe. This tower, though, was built by a civilization. It was built by agriculturalists who had settled there, and they were growing their crops and herding animals. At Göbekli Tepe, all of the evidence that we have is for hunter-gatherers. They were gathering wild plants, and they were hunting wild animals. And so you need to know this kind of stuff, Zahi Hawass, if you want to burst the bubbles and explain why Göbekli Tepe has nothing to do with the pyramids. You need to understand just the modicum of the narratives that these guys are trying to sell to their audience so that you are prepared to be able to debunk these narratives and pre-bunk them and show what real archaeology shows in real time. And that's really important because Göbekli Tepe really is like catnip. I see somebody saying, make sure to hit the like button. Yes, please make sure to give a like and a comment when we're done so that more people can see this, because I put some work into this. I think this is a really cool video. All right. Are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready for the worst, the ugliest of all the mistakes that... No, it does not, because it doesn't. No, it does not. The DNA does not show that. I'm sorry. I'm responding to this comment right here. This is not true. Domestication, archaeobotanists, both using DNA evidence and morphological evidence, show that domestication occurs about 11,000, 10,000, 12,000 years ago in Southwest Asia. Later, 1,000 years later in Mesoamerica, and thousands of years later in different areas of the world. This is just simply fake news. Okay. Now, the worst mistake, the ugliest of all the mistakes that Zahi Hawass made. I've seen some people in the chat talking about his stuff on magic. I don't really care too much about that. That is not my issue. My issue is an extreme misrepresentation of archaeological evidence, archaeological science, and how the entire field uses it. And it's a real problem. So here we go. Let's do this. Anybody know?
What I just found is that it came from a
Who's Buffal?
book.
Buffal is not a scientist.
No, I'm just
Yeah, I
asking.
know. Those people, yani, when someone came to you with a theory, he has to have Egyptology background. He has to write a scientific article. We write all what we discover. We write articles about them for people to read and criticize and give us opinion. But I can't go to theories like this
I understand.
that has no basis.
What do you base the dates on? Do you base it on carbon isotope?
No, we don't. We
No?
based dating on the evidence that we discover.
Right, but
Like
some of it
dynast-
is based on carbon, right?
No,
Carbon testing.
I don't believe in carbon date 14 at all.
You don't?
No,
Why not?
carbon date 14 never give an accurate dating. And that's why I believe, when you discover something, if you discover a cemetery,
Right.
there is two types of datings. One called absolute dating, means that in this cemetery, you have a name of a king and a date. Mean this is absolute. But if you discover another cemetery and has no dates, then the best thing that we do is to find the artifacts in this cemetery and try to compare it with other dated cemetery. And you give a date for this.
But you don't believe in carbon
I don't
testing.
believe in carbon date 14 at all. And it's not working in Egypt until today. I have been I'm excavating also in the Valley of the Kings.
Right.
And I discovered major important things that we can talk about it.
So if you're going back
but I
2,500 years,
used radar.
radar.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say. I have a whole video on radiocarbon dating. I'll put that in here with a physicist, by the way, Dr. Sam Gregson, talking about the physics and the archaeology of C14 dating. And he is way wrong. He's clearly needs to read more than just what he has published. So let's check this out. Let's start off with a publication that he is on. I think that's a good way to start. So back in 2001, here we go. This series of radiocarbon dates were taken from Giza and other Old Kingdom monuments published by Bonani et al. 2001. And what they showed was that by and large, the radiocarbon dates lined up with Egyptian dates, the artifact dates and the king's lists and the things like that. By the way, somebody said the Turin king's list goes back 30,000 years. Read Wikipedia on the Turin king's list. Go check it out. The way Hancock and others represented it is not true. So the problem with this article that Zahi Hawass is talking about is the dates are a little too old. And it's not like they're too old to suggest that the pyramids, which a lot of these dates come from, they come from the mortar in the chinking of the stones that was made with there was carbon in there, and they dated them, and they were about 100 years too old. Maybe 200 at times. And so the explanation for about a decade was that they used older wood. So the reason why is to make mortar, you need to burn something. And they just used scrap wood, which was wood from buildings that was used 100, 200 years earlier and were no longer in use. And they used that stuff for the mortar to help solidify the blocks of the pyramids. Okay. That explanation makes sense. This is actually why if you go see my radiocarbon video, there's lots of problems with radiocarbon. I mean, it's a fantastic method and it's been proven and as successful time and time again, but there's complications that can give you confusing data. And one of those is, look, the date comes from when that organism was alive, not when it was built into a building or burned for mortar or whatever the hell you're burning it for, right? And so that's one of the problems. If you're using old wood, you're going to get a wood that is a date that's dates to the time when that wood was chopped down. Same thing, if you're using wood, you could imagine a tree ring. It's wide. If you use the inner part of the tree ring, that might date 100 years earlier than the outer part of the tree ring, because the different parts of wood grow at different times and therefore produce different dates. So we oftentimes don't like to use charcoal because it comes from wood that lives for a long time and we can't be as sure of the dates. And so we try to use younger lived species. We also, in a sense, do statistical analyses because we now have calibrated atmospheric carbon to more precise levels since 2001. And so lo and behold, Zahi is referring to this article that he was an author on, right? So he knows it really well. He discovered this, if you will. But he's ignoring all the publications on this since 2001. So these dates were more recently reviewed by MWD, Tommy Hyam, who runs a fantastic radiocarbon lab in Vienna and used to be the head of the radiocarbon lab in Oxford. And what they've done is a different type of, A, they used an updated calibration curve for the atmospheric carbon. B, they used up-to-date statistical Bayesian modeling for a series of radiocarbon dates. And when they did these up-to-date methods that are standard on sites around the world, lo and behold, the Bayesian approach has resulted in a new series of calibrations that show much closer agreement with conventional chronological records. So there's no need to theorize about whether it's old wood or not. No, we just have to use up-to-date methods. Right? Up-to-date statistical analyses and up-to-date analyses of calibration curves from the atmosphere, of carbon in the atmosphere, which this is standard methods that archaeologists all over use. It's been replicated and tested ad nauseum with tens and tens of thousands of samples. And look what actually happens. Whoa, they actually line up. And this is the old model. This is for the Great Pyramid. This is what it looked like without using it. This is what it looks like once you use these new models. And it actually lines up quite closely. It's within the standard error range of radiocarbon for all of these Old Kingdom monuments. And so Zahi Hawass is on Joe Rogan saying he does not trust radiocarbon because it doesn't always line up with historical dates from archaeology, and because it does not line up with historical dates from history and from our artifacts and stuff like that, when in fact, in the fucking Old Kingdom, it actually lines up quite nicely. It actually lines up quite nicely. There might always be an issue with an individual sample, but when you do statistical modeling of the bulk of all the samples that have been tested and published, it actually lines up quite nicely. In fact, if you go watch my video of Sam Gregson, it was lining up with Egyptian dates that helped test radiocarbon back in the 1950s when Willard Libby won a Nobel Prize for it. And so this is just terrible communication of science. And he starts it off by saying he's a scientist. And then he totally bungles modern methods in archaeology, up-to-date bibliography on the correlation between radiocarbon dates and physical archaeological remains, as well as inscriptions and monuments in the Old Kingdom of Egypt. And he just totally misinforms these millions of people, and people are going to take those clips and use it against archaeologists online over the next decade or so and say, well, Zahi Hawass, the most famous archaeologist of all, does not believe in radiocarbon dates. So therefore, we can throw them out for everything and pretend that some advanced civilization, it could be responsible. And it's like, no, you fucking cannot. This stuff has been published and debated in scholarship and literature. Thank you very much, Brian McMurray. I am trying my best to elucidate the facts for everybody here. And this is the reality here, is radiocarbon works. And Zahi is out here just kind of saying he doesn't believe in it because I don't even know why, when all of his colleagues are using it. So, yeah, this is where I stand on this interview. I actually had prepped some other things, but I somehow missed it. What I will do is I will take questions. First of all, everybody remember to give this a like and a comment to feed the algorithm machine. Make sure you ask some questions in the chat. And I'm going to end my normal lecture here with a Facebook post that I saw recently on the Fraudulent Archaeology Wall of Shame about this interview. And it says, Rogan could have picked any Egyptologist to be on the show. It's telling that this is who he picked. And somebody replies, well, what's wrong with him? He's very famous. He's on documentaries. And Casey Baker here says, Hawass is not adept as a presenter on a podcast format, unfortunately. And given his long history of controversy with the pseudo-archaeology crowd, there's a massive amount of disinformation and smear pieces about him that appear at the top of Google searches. So while Rogan could have picked any Egyptologist, he picked the one that his audience could most easily dismiss or attack. Not only that, you can tell how dismissive Rogan is during this episode. Hawass did not do the preparation that Dibble did to appeal to Rogan and the platform and capture his and his audience's attention. And I would fully agree with this. I think that this was sort of a setup on Zahi. I think that there's going to be a wide variety of reaction videos that clip, in particular, some of the ugly and some of the bad things that I showed here. And they're going to try to really make archaeologists look like fools because of this. When my own take, though, to be honest, is that Zahi did not do a terrible job. I think most people are not pseudo-archaeology fans. Most people were just tuning in for a cool chat between Zahi Hawass and Joe Rogan, and they probably picked up a lot of good information about how archaeology works from Zahi Hawass. It is a real shame. I think Zahi lost a major opportunity to show these photos and these images that I collected and showed for you here. But I wish that I wish that he had done that. Other than that, I think a lot of the mistakes he made are just slips of tongue. He was on the spot speaking in a second language. He didn't always hear what Joe was saying, and he corrected himself later, or he made a simple mistake, 700 years instead of 70, stuff like that. And that's just life. I mean, you know, I've been critiqued a whole ton as well when I went on Rogan for making a couple simple mistakes and for being cut out of context on things that I did not make mistakes on. And the same thing is obviously going to happen to Dr. Hawass, and I feel for him. And Joe, if you want to have somebody come on that's prepared and will show the audience with images how archaeology works, you know that I'm willing to come on. You're the one that's avoiding it because you're scared of me telling your audience how awesome Real Archaeology is. So thank you all. Let's get some questions. I'll stick around for about 15, 20 minutes and answer some questions if people have them. That is my overall take on Zahi Hawass's appearance on Joe Rogan. There is a range of good, bad, and ugly. All right, a couple little questions here. Am I aware of any carbon dating of samples from the core of the Meidum Pyramid? Not off the top of my head. I'd have to do some research. I'm not sure. Sorry. Did I ever wonder where the milk that made the cheese that formed the moon came from? I've always wondered about that, Levi or Levy. Meat Eater, I'm actually not as up to date on why Zahi Hawass stormed out of that debate with Hancock because of Robert Bauval. That's something I should look into, but I'm not up to date on that. So I don't have an answer for you right now, but that's something I will look into, and I'll try to get back to you. Yes, this is a real clear point. When there are errors, when dates don't match, archaeologists work hard to figure out why. Sometimes there's contamination, sometimes there's a reservoir effect, sometimes it's due to the fact it's an old date that was not calibrated using the modern calibration curves. There's lots of reasons, and this is why we do this statistically, not just one date. We need a whole range of dates, and when you statistically analyze them, it makes sense. I thought I banned that bot, at least as best as I can, Baton Relay on Twitch. I'm not sure how else to ban bots. Thank you, Mondo McKellis. I appreciate it, and I'm sure David Miano does. David and I are cooking up a collaboration in the future, so look forward to it. Let's see. Andrew Kinkella, go check out Kinkella Teaches Archaeology on YouTube and his pseudo-archaeology podcast, where podcasts are found. He mentions he was at dinner once with Zahi Hawass. He's exactly how you think. I don't fault him for it. He's done excellent public outreach over the years. Yeah, I've never actually met Zahi Hawass, so I have no insight into him. Though I will tell you, my dad actually taught him at Penn. And my dad always was shocked at how he became, as a public communicator, very loud and attention seeking, because apparently in the classroom he was extremely shy. This was back in the 80s, the mid 80s, but apparently he was very shy and soft spoken in the mid 80s. So he really opened up in the 90s once he started getting public attention, which I think is kind of funny. No, my dad has passed away, so we can't verify this, but he did tell me this over drinks one time at my house. If I cannot get back on Joe, who would you like to see there instead? I mean, there's a lot of phenomenal communicators in archaeology. I would think someone like Sarah Parkak could be pretty good. She's very good. I mean, there's a lot of different people, so I don't really have any ideal thing. I would like to see Joe bring on more real archaeologists to answer these kinds of questions. Salima Ikram, she's an amazing communicator. I'm going to have Monica Hanna on my channel on Tuesday for a live stream to discuss her new book, The Future of Egyptology. So if Joe's really interested in Egypt, that's 3 different names of excellent communicators. And I know he's interested in Egypt. To tell you the truth, I'm actually kind of surprised he had Zahi Hawass on, because when I was there, we got along really well after the debate. And Joe was very pleased with how that debate went, and he was very friendly with me. And I told him, I said, hey, I have contacts with Egyptologists. If you want, I know you're so fascinated by Egypt. And he said he'd never have an Egyptologist on. He was so anti it. And I was like, okay, whatever you want. I'll come back on if you want. And he said, let's do it. And then since then, he's obviously reneged on that. But yeah, so there's lots of great communicators for archaeology. And I think any and all of them would be great. I think I'd be happy to go back on. I think even Zahi Hawass going back on would be a good thing. It's the 30,000-year-old king list is just plain old misinterpretation. It is extrapolating back mythical random stuff that doesn't make any sense. The king list clearly ends in the first dynasty as historical king list. And then it gets into mythical stuff that's earlier. It's just a fabrication made up by Sitchin and Hancock and others to suggest there's a king list that's in any way accurate going back before the first dynasty. What other popular podcasts would I be interested in going on? I'm happy to go on any popular podcasts and less popular podcasts. I think, and I have a backlog of invites. None of them are nearly as big as Joe Rogan, of course, but I enjoy sharing archaeology with the public, and I do not really discriminate against any. I think that if people are interested in learning about archaeology, I hope that they have me and others of my colleagues on to try to explain the state of 21st century archaeology. I think that's important because people are really fascinated by archaeology, and there's this group of people that are trying to hijack the narrative, people that don't have any knowledge of the field, and they claim that we're hiding the past and bullshit like that. That reminds me of another clip that I wanted to show. Let me see if I can find this. It's a funny one. Yeah. Here, wait, let's play one more clip. This is another good one by Zahi, which makes, I think, a really important point here. Because people claim that, we're hiding the past or something like this. This point should be heard loud and clear.
Some people think that I discovered evidence to prove that pyramids built by aliens or lost civilization, and I hide them. I never answer these questions. But to you, I tell you, how can I hide anything? I'm not working alone. I'm working with people. You cannot hide anything because people will see you. And I will tell you a joke. It happened, but it's a joke. A reporter came to see me from California to my office, and my office.
And so I think that's a really important point. Look, you can't really hide much in archaeology because there's so many people around you. There's tourists around you oftentimes. There's students around you. There's employees around you. There's such a range of people around you on a site. You can't hide anything. Not in today's world. You're surrounded by people that would say that you're hiding something. And so it's just not possible. And I think that needs to be, I think that needs to be stressed. So there's a whole lot of comments and questions here. Wow. I would love to get Salima Ikram on here. That would be phenomenal. So that's my goal. But I need to get her on. I need to get in touch with her. Like I said, I'll have Monica Hanna on. I saw somebody say, am I going to have an Egyptologist on? Yes, I'll have Monica Hanna on Tuesday, next Tuesday, at 5 p.m. UK, noon Eastern, to talk about the future of Egyptology. Let's see. I'm trying to start all the questions. I will try to get to them, but there's a lot. And I will prioritize super chats because I can see them much better, if you see what I mean. Let's see. One more sip of beer before I get back to some questions. Okay, I have 11 of them or 10 of them pinned. Here we go. This is an advice from Jojo Meru. Thank you for the super chat. The best video about moving stone in a YouTube title. This is in French. A-t-on besoin des extraterrestres ou des atlantes pour déplacer des blocs de plusieurs tonnes? So I guess this has a good video about how to move stone. So definitely check that out. I think that's a valuable thing for people to see, different ways to move large stones. Does Egypt have lewd art the same way that Greece/Rome did? Not nearly as much. It's something I'd actually like to learn more about. I've never researched that in ancient Egypt. Maybe Justine, I see, is in the chat. Maybe she knows. Justine wanted me to clarify that Akhenaten ruled in the New Kingdom after the Second Intermediate Period. Yes, that's a good point. Another thing that I guess Zahi got wrong when discussing Khufu and changing the religion and stuff like that. But again, this is talking off the cuff, and I did not even bother to correct him. So good job, Justine. I'd love to get Justine on here at some point. She's an Egyptologist that excavated with me at Abydos, nearly over 20 years ago at this point. Will I interview an Egyptologist soon? Yes, I'll have Monica Hanna on Tuesday, and I plan on having on other Egyptologists as well in the future. Maybe I'll reach out to Zahi Hawass, see if he wants to come on, though I'm guessing my channel is too small for him. Will I ever collaborate with Mini Minuteman in the future again? Yes, for sure. We will be collaborating in the future. We've actually chatting about various things. I think you could carbon date something that's alive. You might have to like chop off my finger or something to do it, but you could probably do it. You don't have to kill me to carbon date me. Let's see. The reservoir effect is really a cool thing. Unfortunately, now with lots of ancient carbon getting to the atmosphere with all fossil fuels, how badly does it affect the radiocarbon dates? This is a good question. It's actually answered in my video on the physics of C14 dating. Carbon in the atmosphere today does not impact ancient dates. Different things like water and whatnot, though, can. As that's the reservoir effect, is waterlogged samples and stuff like that can be impacted by diagenesis, where the carbon values are modified by the water that it's in. But obviously the carbon in the atmosphere today impacts modern carbon dates, so more recent ones. We can't really do radiocarbon dating post-1950 since nuclear explosions went off, because we put too much carbon in the atmosphere and changed the atmospheric carbon to such a level that modern dates resemble ancient dates, and so we get this mirror, and that's a problem if we might get modern dates. Franklin Sterling III, are the accusations of Zahi's alleged corruption true? I do not know. I've heard about them. They've been reported in the Egyptian press. I have no idea. I don't know Zahi personally, and I don't work in Egypt anymore, so I don't have any inside information on that. Hawass often dismisses alternative theories quite aggressively. Do you think that kind of gatekeeping harms public interest in Egyptology, or does it protect academic standards? Shino Bimo, I think there's room for a range of different voices when it comes to alternative theories. I think there's people like David Miano who do it with the gloves on all the time. He's very polite and calm and does not gatekeep. He entertains these ideas, while Zahi is much more aggressive. Other people like Professor Dave and Mini Minuteman are much more mocking in how they deal with it. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think there's room for a lot of different voices in terms of how to address alternative theories. I certainly always will try to emphasize we should work from the evidence rather than from theories. And I think that alternative theories and people that do that do not do so, and they do not understand the history of their ideas. And so I will always work to try to explain that. Thank you so much, JCYT7906, for the super thanks. There are many things that Zahi got right in his interview. If you look at the first part of this live stream, I went through the good in a lot of detail. And so I think that it's important to emphasize that he did do a lot of really good things that are worthwhile. He did express a lot of facts, and he did so in very clear ways, though he did get things wrong. And in some ways, I think he should have showed up with images to show rather than just tell what he's trying to say. And that's what let Joe Rogan and other people say, oh, you got to buy an $81 book when they're charging $420 to see them talk. Come check out Flint Dibble. I'll show you the images, and I'll do it for free. Though, of course, I do always appreciate the super thanks, the memberships, and stuff like that. While I'm on it, remember that members get perks. Channel members get perks. They get to know who I have on in advance. They get to ask questions in advance, and they also get to they get different new videos. I'm about to set up a Discord server for people that are on my Patreon, so join my Patreon. I'm Flint Dibble on Patreon. Go check it out. All right, let's see what other questions there are. Any archaeological hidden gems in the city? Go check out the City Museum. If you've not been to it, there's actually some interesting archaeological artifacts in there. That, to me, besides the castle, is probably the coolest stuff that's on display. Oh, have you been to the Caer Hill Fort? C-A-E-R. Several colleagues of mine run that. It's in Ely, and I highly recommend checking out the Caer Iron Age Hill Fort. And when excavations are happening, there's excavations that will be happening this summer nearby. So I definitely, Caer Hill Fort is one of the best hidden archaeological gems in Ely. I have no idea if Joe will have me back on at some point. I have gotten in touch with him, and I know he got my message because I was told it was passed on to him. He did not reply, and then he spent the next couple podcasts bashing me. So I think I got my reply. I have a video on Joe Rogan and his thoughts on me coming out at some point. It's still not finished. Let's see. Yes, everybody make sure to go check out some of the Night Scarab videos highlighting the conflict on the vase scan teams. They're trying to hide some of this stuff. I have a video that I'm also slowly working on these granite vases that I think will add some new interesting aspects to the conversation. No, I'm not going to reveal what those are right now. You're going to have to wait. The original intended purpose of the Great Pyramid of Giza was as a tomb. It was a funerary monument. We know this beyond a doubt based on what the Egyptians have written at the time and afterwards. We know this because of the grave goods and the false funerary chamber and the sarcophagus that exists inside. It was 100% intended as a tomb. I have a fantastic video with Dr. Beth Hart on the evolution of royal tombs in Egypt, building up to the Great Pyramid from over 1,000 years beforehand up until the Great Pyramid. Go check it out. Seriously, this is beyond a doubt. I will make a video more precisely on this at some point because I have my own take on it as well. How much revenue is coming into Egypt from the alternative archaeology crowd? To be honest, it's a small fraction. Most of the tourism that comes in are people that are legitimately interested in archaeology. Pseudo-archaeology is really big online, and there are a lot of people that entertain theories because they don't know much about real archaeology. But most people, to be honest, are really just fascinated by archaeology. They want to go see the pyramids and go inside. They want the salt from their breath to collect on the walls right? So that Marcel Foti can lick the stones. That's what people mostly want. And so I don't think alternative archaeology actually brings in any major significant income. I would love to have Mark Lehner on. I sent him an email. He didn't reply. I'll send him another email at some point. Yes, thank you so much, Mental Glitch. Everybody is a certified diblet, especially if you send me a tip. Let's see. Have I ever shouted it belongs in a museum? Yes, and every single one of those fucking granite vase videos, because those are all either forgeries or they've been illegally looted and illegally exported from Egypt, and most likely, and yeah, they all belong in museums for proper testing, not by fucking YouTubers who want to spend money on the fucking gray antiquities market. Obviously, I need to have the great Andrew Kinkella on. No, we're going to have the great Andrew Kinkella on for sure. Andrew, let's ping each other on WhatsApp. Let's get you on sometime in June. By the way, I'm going to be doing a video probably really late May, early June on the Italian background behind the team. I have an Italian archaeologist who wants to come on and chat about these crazy people who believe in demons and aliens and junk like that. Rich Lancaster, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the tip that you sent me earlier. I have a video that's going to be based off not the monetary tip, the information tip. I have a video that I'll do on that later. Probably in the next couple of weeks. Justine tells us there's some delightful pornographic papyri from ancient Egypt. I'd love to know more. Let's see. Let's see. I'm looking for questions. I seem to have mostly have comments and few questions. Yeah, so this is a good question. How did ancient builders achieve such precision of the Great Pyramid's base to true north? So there's several different ways to calculate true north in a traditional way without using fancy technology like GPS coordinates or anything like that. So one of them is to use the stars. Certainly possible. There's good evidence that the ancient Egyptians did use stars to align things, and they were close studiers of the stars and how they lined up with things on the earth. But a simpler way is to simply hold up a stick. Put a stick in the sand on the equinox, and the shadow will fall directly east-west, true east-west, which means if you draw a perpendicular line, which is not that hard to do with traditional technology, you will end up truly north-south. So there's two different ways they could have done it, either really complex astronomical calculations or by using the shadow on the equinox, which is also very doable, or both. So it's really cool. It shows how intelligent and amazing the ancient Egyptians were, but it does not take anything else. What dating method can we rely on in the post-nuclear era? You know, this is a good question. There's people actually working on trying to understand how to do radiocarbon in the post-nuclear era, because it is doable. It's just you can end up with two possible dates, a modern one or an ancient one. But there's obviously the coins that you drop are also pretty useful, the kind of dates that Zahi prefers. And there's other kinds of methods that might work. I'm not sure about some of the other ones we use. Thermoluminescence would still be a usable method because that's about the last time something was exposed to light. So if it's buried, you get the last time it was exposed to light. So that would work regardless of the post-nuclear era. I'm not sure about other newer methods like uranium, thorium. I imagine that might be affected by the nuclear era, but I'm also not sure. Let's see, I need to scroll down. Yeah, why is there a narrative that the Egyptians suddenly started building huge pyramids out of pure ignorance? Like I said, I have a whole video, a fantastic video I hope people watch on the clear progression of royal tombs from mastabas and from the Shuna and the enclosures that I helped excavate at Abydos all the way down to the Great Pyramid. And we can see this as a clear development that takes place over hundreds and thousands of years. I don't know why people believe this. It's because people spout lies out of ignorance or intentionally on the internet, and then other people hear those lies and they believe them and they repeat them. We live in such a lovely world. Professor Dave can be a bit aggressive and insulting, but to be fair, he spends his time and energy on the biggest idiots alive. How patient are you? I'm fine with doing a little bit of both. Like I said, I think multiple approaches to pseudoscience is the best approach. There's not one right answer. Patience is good. Sometimes being aggressive and insulting is good. Each of them hits different types of people, and that's good. Let's see. I am still scrolling down on questions. Sorry, I'm going to skip down to below because I've missed a bunch. No, I can read some ancient languages. I've taught Latin and I read ancient Greek, but I don't speak them at all. I speak some modern Greek. Tikanis, re, eledo, yamas. Let's see. Come on. I think I'm gonna say goodbye soon. I gotta have dinner. It's 9:15 here. The magic story. All right, I'll play this. I didn't really find this so relevant, but whatever. It's kind of funny. Let's see. I'll play this for everybody. Khufu the magician.
Hieroglyphic, but not at the time of Khufu. It's after Khufu. The story, it's written in a papyri. It's called Khufu and the Magician. It says that Khufu was staying in his palace, and he was very upset. He was not happy. And his son came to him, "Your Majesty, why are you unhappy?" He said, "I'm searching for the secret of the god Thoth, the god of wisdom. Then I can design my burial chamber in the pyramid." Then his son told him, "I know a magician. His name is Jidi. He knows how to cut the head of a man off and put it back. And he knows the secret of the god Thoth, the god of wisdom."
He knows how to cut the head of a man off and put it back, but is the guy still alive? Is that what he's saying?
No, this is what the son
Right.
is telling his father.
I understand that.
That Jidi can do that.
A lot of people can cut a guy's head off and
But
put it
listen
back.
to the story. This is the story.
Okay.
Then the king told his son, "Bring this
Magician.
to me."
Okay.
They describe him as 100 years old, and he drink 1,000 beer. Jidi came in front of the king. And Khufu told him, "I heard that you can cut the head of a man off." He said, "Yes, your majesty." He said, "Do it." Jidi said, "I cannot do it with a human being." He said, "Okay, I will bring you a prisoner." Jidi said, "A prisoner is a human being." Then he brought him a goose. He took the head of the goose up in front of everyone. And the head came back, and the goose was running in front of everyone. That's written in the story. Then
Do you
the
believe
king,
that?
I come back to what's believed that now.
Okay.
And the king told him, "I want to know the secret of the god Thoth to design my burial chamber." He told him that this secret will not be in your hand. It will be in the hand of another people who will rule Egypt. Khufu was very upset.
So he wouldn't give him the secret because that secret won't just be in your hands. It'll get into other people's hands.
Then
and it's dangerous.
the king was unhappy. He told them, "Don't worry, your majesty, because you will rule, and your sons and your grandson." Now, about magic.
Yeah.
Do you believe in religion or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know about Judaism?
Sure, a little
When
bit.
God told Moses, when Moses met God, and God told him to go to Egypt to meet the Pharaoh.
Right.
And God told him, "Remember, the pharaohs are highly in magic."
Right.
They will beat you. Then God taught Moses how to be more in magic than the Pharaoh. And you remember when he heard the stick, and the stick became a snake, I think. And Moses brought more snakes to swallow what the Pharaoh did. Then we know from books, from Judaism from the beginning, that the ancient Egyptians were really highly in magic. Then we can believe.
Do you think that magic might have had something to do with how they constructed the pyramids? No?
No.
You don't, but if you believe that they had enough magic to take a goose's head and put it back on, it's still alive. That's magic.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they use that magic for other things?
But we have.
But if you believe in magic.
I do, of course.
You do believe in magic.
Yeah.
So you believe that someone could take someone's head off, put it back on.
It's written.
Okay, then it must be true.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. What is this? Someone's going to kill a dove?
It's a magic trick. Can decapitate birds and stuff.
Oh,
Put it
okay.
back together. I was just reading it. Apparently, in the trick that he did he put the head on the.
Okay, so there you go. The Zahi Hawass believes in magic. I mean, I disagree with him. I think that obviously there's stuff in there that is mythology and religion and stuff like that. But, you know, to each their own. I have zero issues with Zahi Hawass believing in magic. I don't think that misrepresents archaeology in ways that along the ways that I've looked at. I also don't think that it shines a particularly good light on archaeology. I just thought that scene was funny. And I was trying to focus on things that I could say something about. I don't really have much to say about it. All right, last few little things before I go. Where is this? Justine also adds that we have evidence of Egyptian astronomical observations and tracking seasons going back to the Nabta stone circle, circa 7500 BC. So we're talking 9,500 years ago. So yeah, that's without a doubt, we know that the ancient Egyptians were tracking astronomy. Yes, this is a really good point, Michelle. Ancient people had something we do not have in our lives: time. Time to learn, time to try, time to fail, but time. How much you got? I got about 5 minutes before I go eat dinner. What kind of beer is this? This is one of my favorite beers. It is Leffe Blonde. I also really enjoy Leffe Brune. It's a Belgian beer. It does not sponsor my YouTube channel, but it's oftentimes the beer that I'm most commonly drinking on air. Let's see. How many civilizations has history documented that had knowledge of what we'd recognize as astronomy and geology? To be honest, everybody has knowledge of geology. When you go back hundreds of thousands of years, hominids, Neanderthals, Homo erectus, Denisovans, etc., they all had really good knowledge of geology. They knew which kind of rocks fractured in a conchoidal way to make lovely stone tools. So to be honest, we have been using stones as a group, the genus Homo, and before even Australopithecines, for millions of years. And so we've had knowledge of geology through experimenting with stones like flint or obsidian for millions of fucking years. In terms of astronomy, again, I think we have evidence going back tens of thousands of years at a minimum. I think everybody always paid attention to the sun, to the stars, to the moon. It was something to do when you have time. And so people did that. I mean, I don't think it really matters, Meat Eater, how much force it takes to pull a heavy stone, because experiments have shown time and time again, and historical documents have shown that people can move these things regardless of the fact that they weigh hundreds of tons. It's something that with enough people and enough creativity and ingenuity with engineers, people with engineering expertise, people can do. That said, I'm not opposed to getting an architect or a physics teacher on to think about the specific question. But I tend to think that we need to stop focusing on how tough it is to move heavy stones and instead honor the accomplishments of our ancestors who were able to do so. So those were the comments that I had shown. I want to thank everybody. I will be live streaming tomorrow at 5 p.m. UK time, noon Eastern time, with the OG of pseudo-archaeology, Dr. Kenny Fetter, who has just released a version of his book, Frauds, Myths, and Mysteries. And we are going to be discussing tomorrow on this channel, 5 p.m. UK, noon Eastern, dirty archaeological frauds. Here's the link to the live stream. Dirty Frauds in Archaeology with Dr. Ken Fetter. I hope that everybody shows up because it's going to be a phenomenal conversation. And I have three fantastic live streams for next week. On Tuesday, I'll be talking about the new book, The Future of Egyptology, with Monica Hanna, Dr. Monica Hanna, an Egyptian Egyptologist. On Wednesday, I will have Dr. Manveer Singh on to discuss Time Magazine's Book of the Month. It comes out on May 20th. I have Dr. Manveer Singh on tomorrow or next Wednesday to discuss his new book on shamanism, Time Book of the Month. It should be a really good one if you're interested in the archaeology and the anthropology of shamanism. So check that out on Wednesday. And then next Friday, I will have on Dr. Jane Draycott to discuss her new book on Fulvia, just this phenomenal woman, the strongest woman in ancient Rome. So all these will, of course, be recorded. Everybody, can you please remember to leave a like and leave a comment as soon as I go away. I am about to go away. I just have one more thing to share with everybody. We got to hear.
Hi, my name is Flint, and I'm an archaeologist.
Rock on, y'all. Thank you so much. Yeah.